Hi friends, in our time together today, I'm introducing the Banshee reel, also called McMahon's reel, and some other names. One of the reasons I selected this reel for us to learn is that, well, some of you have asked for it. Also, it's popular enough that we should all know it. And I think in some ways, as a reel, it has enough runs in it. It's a little easier for us. It's a little more accessible, I'll say. And that's very helpful. But it's a great tune to use to develop and enhance our skills. We'll follow our usual format. I'll put a link at the very top of the notes to this video so that you could download the music and tabs if you want to use those. I'll walk us through the tune. As a reel, it has an A part and a B part. Each of these repeats. I'll stand and slowly play through the A part. Then I'll do the same for the B part. Then I'll play in the Play Along with Scott section the entire tune, including repeats, at a little faster pace, because I'd like you to go to use that A part and B part to learn the tune so that when you're doing the Play Along with Scott section, you could play along with me and get a little bit of the pace. I will, in my playing, play the core of the tune and play without ornamentation, light tonguing, so that you could differentiate between the notes, because there are some duplicate notes where you're going to ornament when you're playing it. And after that, we'll go through any trouble spots. We'll talk about ornamentation and expression and the history of the tune. Now, I'm providing, as I said, a download of the transcription of the tune, which is pretty much the same as some of the most popular versions I found on the session website and some other very traditional music, traditional Irish music websites where you could get the music in tabs. I made like one or two minimal changes that the main one really is in the opening measure, and I'll talk about that after I go through the A part as an alternate introduction. So, here, my friends, is the A part to the Banshee reel. Alrighty, so that's the A part. Play it with me a few times. Now that opening measure, you see, most transcriptions play G, G, D, E, D, B, D. They go down to that lower B that you can't do on your whistles. And that's because it's often transcribed for other instruments. So what many people do is that they just go up an octave on the B. And that works fine. Now, some find that cumbersome, and so this is the primary alternate intro. So, what you're doing is you're just walking around that D and E rather than going up to the B. And whatever you fancy is perfectly fine. Here now is the B part. I'll now play through the entire tune in the play along with Scott section, standing so you can see my hands, and just a bit of a faster pace so that after you've learned the A part and the B part, you're able to play along with me and really get a bit of the flow of the tune, again, without ornaments and light tonguing to differentiate between the notes for you. Alrighty, that is the tune. And again, if you need to slow me down, hit the little gear at the top, slow down in the play along with Scott's section. But again, that's why I did the A part and the B part separately and more slowly so that you could learn the tune and then the challenge of just playing along with me. So let's think through any difficulties you actually might experience with the tune. I think the first is if you're a beginner to low intermediate player, you've got the challenge of learning to play it at speed. Remember, my normal recommendation is play it at the pace you can. Then make sure you could play it well, play it cleanly at that pace, the core of the tune. Then experiment with some ornamentation, but remember playing the core of the tune. Then go back and play the core of the tune just a hair faster until you could play it well at that pace. And then just keep walking up that speed ladder until you could play it faster and experiment with some ornamentation along the way. Because you want to carry that ability to ornament the tune as you go. Another challenge you may experience is dexterity. And I know that's minimally different from speed, but they impact each other so significantly. You're going to have to do a little jumping around, not a lot from the standpoint of a reel. And that's why this is a good one. But you do have to play some higher notes. In that first bit, you've got to go up to the second octave G, and the second bit, you've got to go to the second octave A. I know there are some folks say don't worry about learning to play those higher notes, and this is why I say focus on being able to play every note on your instrument because you're going to have to hit them. So a couple of recommendations on that second octave A. Focus your air a little better as you're hitting it. And or this might be an opportunity for a stronger ornament, like on that first one, to tongue that first A. Okay, or use another ornament to go into it that might help you accentuate that. Like just a little cut there, and that will help you force and focus your air, and that might help you on that. Okay, so thinking now through ornamentation and expression. Expression, it's supposed to be a fun, dancey tune, so don't get too somber playing it. Have a good time. Okay, remember that you experiment with cuts and taps and on some of the descending and repeated notes, even going up if you want. Throw a roll in, maybe on the double D's, you could crayon that if you want. I've heard people do a number of different things. I don't want to be prescriptive here. I will share a practice session in the next few days, and I'll show you some of the things I'm trying. But what I'd like you to do is listen to some other people playing it on their whistles, but even more some like a session where people are playing it, and maybe somebody playing it on the fiddle or a concertina, just some other things. So you see where they're throwing runs in, and because this is a good one for throwing in an extra run or two. Anyway, so do that, because ornamentation and expression is personal, and I don't want to force mine on you, but I need to give you ideas and recommendations. So that's why those are there, but also I'll share what I'm doing in an upcoming video in a day or two. Let's think about the history of the tune. It's an interesting tune, and it kind of shows us this tune is a good one to use to show us how tunes transition and even become other things. We know it as the Banshee reel. Well, the Bothy band took an earlier tune and they made it popular in the 1970s and gave it the name the Banshee. And so that current name that we know is not really all that old from a music standpoint. Before that, it was known as McMahon's reel because James McMahon says he composed the tune. He came out of County Antrim and lived from 1893 to 1977. It's possible that he composed this, but what he did, if he did compose it, then it's the massage of another tune. And what a lot of people do is, and what it seems McMahon may have done, is he took an old barn dance named Sweet Flowers of Milltown, and he took a barn dance, smoothed it up, did some other things to the flow of the tune, and changed the pace to a reel. And then he had a brand new reel. And that's legitimate. Nothing wrong with that at all. And so there's, interestingly, a Facebook group dedicated to James McMahon that you could find. There aren't tons of members, but it's still fun to look through it. Now, there are earlier references, and it's definitely an older tune even than that. Excuse me. But we don't know anything specifically. So call it the Banshee reel, call it James McMahon's reel, other names, doesn't matter. Just play it. Have a great time and learn this tune, my friends. Until next time, this is Scott Shade. Happy whistling.